Your mind is a magnet. It draws to you the people, circumstances, and opportunities that resonate with the dominant thoughts you hold in your consciousness. This is not mysticism, and it is not mere poetry. It is a foundational truth rooted in the cause and effect relationship between thought and reality. Like a tuning fork that vibrates in harmony with another of the same frequency, your mind attracts into your life experiences that match the tone, attitude, and images you carry most persistently. Everything begins in the mind. Every invention, every movement of progress, every failure, every triumph, it all takes root in thought. But this truth, though simple, is often misunderstood or dismissed. We live in a world where most people believe their lives are shaped by external events, by other people, or by luck. But the real architects of destiny are the thoughts we dwell on daily. Your dominant mental image becomes your magnetic force. If you think in terms of fear, scarcity, anger, and doubt, you will begin to notice that your environment starts mirroring those emotions. Conversely, if you consistently feed your mind with images of abundance, strength, possibility, and purpose, you'll find that reality begins to respond accordingly. Let's pause and consider this question. What kind of mental magnet are you? If someone followed you around for a week and wrote down every recurring thought you entertained, what would they discover? Would your dominant ideas be those of gratitude, vision, and personal responsibility? Or would they reflect resentment, complaint, confusion, and doubt? You see, your life is not built in a day, but it is being built every day, brick by brick, thought by thought. Most people are not living lives of quiet desperation because of external circumstances. They are doing so because their internal world has become a battleground of conflicting, negative, and passive mental habits. This is the power of the mind's magnetic field. It does not judge, it does not filter, it simply reflects. Just as a field doesn't question the seed you plant, it simply grows what is sown. Your mind does not question the thought, it simply attracts in accordance with it. And that is the beginning of wisdom. Now let me offer you this idea. Like any magnet, your mind can be trained. It can be strengthened, shaped, refined. The magnetic field of the mind is not fixed. You are not stuck with the mental habits you inherited, absorbed, or defaulted into. You can change them, replace them, and in doing so, change the entire direction of your life. But first, you must understand how this magnet works. And to do that, we must study two key forces: attention and repetition. Whatever you consistently give your attention to, whatever you rehearse mentally, emotionally, or verbally, becomes magnetized. If you rehearse failure, you attract it. If you rehearse excellence, you align with it. Repetition impresses ideas onto the subconscious. And the subconscious mind, once impressed, begins to act like a radar dish scanning the world for matching signals. That is why your attention is sacred. Your focus is power. What you dwell on, you draw in. Think of it this way. If your mind were a broadcasting tower, it would be sending out frequencies every hour of every day, silent to the ear but loud to the universe. And those frequencies are built from your beliefs, your self-image, your inner expectations. Are you sending out signals of uncertainty and hesitation, or signals of boldness, clarity, and growth? A man who believes he cannot succeed has already instructed his mental magnet to repel opportunity. A woman who carries the quiet conviction that she will make a difference is already drawing into her orbit the people and resources that will help her do exactly that. This is not magic, it is mechanics. You are becoming what you consistently believe. And belief is simply a thought you've repeated enough times that it becomes your default signal. That's the law. At this point, you might wonder, if this is true, why don't more people use it? The answer is simple but sobering. Most people don't know they have this power. And even when they hear of it, they underestimate its responsibility. You see, once you accept that your thoughts create your world, you must also accept that your current results are not the fault of chance, fate, or the opinions of others. They are reflections of your past thought patterns. And this is where the transformation begins. Not with blame, but with ownership. Not with regret, but with the realization that if I built this life with unconscious thought, I can now rebuild it with conscious thought. That is the hinge point of all change. Ownership, awareness, and then action. You might say, but I've tried positive thinking and it didn't work. To that I would say, thinking is not enough. Thinking must become belief. Belief must become identity, and identity must express itself in action. Many people attempt to think positive for a few minutes while spending the rest of the day reinforcing the opposite with their fears, doubts, words, and habits. That is not magnetism, that is confusion. A magnet with two opposing poles negates itself. So too does a mind that holds contradictory beliefs. You must choose the signal, and then you must guard it, rehearse it, reinforce it, until it becomes the only station you broadcast from. When that happens, life begins to shift. People say, "You're lucky." But it is not luck, it is alignment. Let me give you a simple test. For the next 24 hours, become ruthlessly aware of what you're thinking about. Interrupt negative spirals. Replace every self-doubt with a conscious affirmation of strength. Catch yourself when you start to complain and instead affirm your intention. Don't allow your mental magnet to pull in debris. Sharpen it, align it, feed it. You'll be amazed at what begins to show up, not because the world has changed, but because your magnet has. Most people wait for the world to change so they can think better. But the truth is, the world waits for you to think better so it can respond differently. Start now. Don't wait. The most powerful magnet in your life is under your control. The switch is in your hand. Take out a notepad. At the top, write this sentence: "My mind is a magnet, and I choose what it attracts." Underneath it, write the dominant thoughts you've been thinking lately. Be honest. Then beside each one, write the kind of results that thought could attract. Do you like what you see? If not, you now know where to begin. Begin today. Replace the harmful thoughts with thoughts that honor your vision, your potential, and your purpose. This exercise is not sentimental. It is strategic. Every time you write, you reinforce. Every time you reinforce, you begin to attract. Thoughts lead to beliefs. Beliefs shape action, and action creates reality. This is not theory. It is the operating system of the most successful men and women throughout history. Let's close this first chapter with a challenge. For the next 7 days, become aware of your internal broadcast. Begin the day with intention. Today I will attract what aligns with my purpose. End the day with reflection. What did I draw into my life today, and why? This simple awareness practice can change everything, because awareness is the first step toward mastery, and mastery of the mind is mastery of life. You have within you a magnet capable of drawing greatness, opportunity, wisdom, and abundance into your world. But it cannot operate through confusion or neglect. It must be aimed. It must be calibrated. It must be fed. This is your power. This is your responsibility. Begin now. Begin with thought. Begin with you. Most people do not realize that the most valuable piece of real estate they will ever own lies between their ears. That 6-inch span contains more potential, more creative energy, and more transformative power than all the natural resources on Earth combined. But like any property, it demands care. It must be tended. It must be developed. The mind, left to itself, defaults to survival mode. It worries, it reacts, it retreats. But the mind that is trained, that is consciously directed, becomes a magnet for growth, vision, and extraordinary results. The difference between the average person and the exceptional one is not talent. It is awareness and control of their inner magnet. Because here's what most people never understand. The outer world is always the echo of the inner world. You do not get what you want. You get what you are. And what you are is determined by what you repeatedly think about, believe in, and emotionally expect. Let me give you a practical analogy. Picture two men. Each is given a plot of land. The soil is rich and fertile. One man plants corn, the other deadly nightshade. The land does not care. It will return what is planted. Multiply it, enrich it, give it back. So it is with the mind. Plant thoughts of purpose, clarity, courage, and contribution, and the results will mirror that. Plant thoughts of worry, envy, anger, and defeat, and you'll reap confusion, missed opportunity, and a shrinking life. The mind does not discriminate between what serves you and what harms you. It simply reflects the seed. Your job then is to become ruthlessly intentional about what you plant, what you allow in, what you rehearse. That is the first law of magnetic living. Guard the gate. Choose your thoughts as carefully as you would choose the company you keep or the food you eat, because those thoughts are planting your future. Now consider this. Every thought you allow to linger in your consciousness carries a frequency, a signal. That signal shapes your posture, your energy, your language, and ultimately your decisions. And your decisions create your outcomes. People often say, "I just don't feel lucky," or "I never catch a break." But the truth is, they are transmitting confusion, doubt, or resentment, and the world is simply responding in kind. You cannot broadcast scarcity and receive abundance. You cannot rehearse self-doubt and expect confidence to appear on command. The mind, like a radio tower, is always on, always sending out signals. The question is not whether it's working. The question is, what are you transmitting? What internal station are you broadcasting from day after day? Is it belief or is it fear? Is it creation or reaction? This is not philosophy, it's physics. Thought creates a pattern. That pattern becomes your life. And yet most people never take a moment to examine the dominant signal of their life. They move through the day pulled by distractions, opinions, expectations, and fears, not realizing that each unguarded thought weakens their magnetic field. You must decide now that you will no longer think by default, that you will no longer rehearse the worst-case scenario under the illusion of being realistic. Realism is not expecting the worst. Realism is understanding the cause and effect nature of thought and choosing to focus on what builds rather than what breaks. The most successful people on earth are not those who ignore problems, but those who choose where their attention goes. They think on purpose. They filter input. They design their internal world before they step into the external one. That is magnetic mastery. That is mental leadership, and it is available to you if you will claim it. Take a moment now to reflect on this. How much of your thinking is original? How much of it is intentional? And how much of it is recycled fear, borrowed doubt, and inherited limitation from your past, your peers, or your environment? The truth may be uncomfortable, but it will set you free. You are not required to believe everything you think. You can rewire. You can revise. You can replace every unworthy idea with a higher one. And in doing so, you transform your magnet. You begin to attract not just things, but people, ideas, challenges, and breakthroughs that align with your upgraded signal. That's how you move from wishing to creating, from drifting to directing, from chaos to clarity. The mind becomes your servant, not your saboteur, but only when you become its master. One of the most dangerous myths in modern life is the belief that change takes a long time. It doesn't. Change happens the moment a new idea is accepted, believed, and emotionally reinforced. In an instant, a man can decide he will no longer live beneath his potential. In a moment, a woman can rewrite the story she's been told about who she is and what she deserves. The key is not time, it's decision followed by repetition. You see, the mind becomes magnetized through emotional reinforcement. Logic informs, but emotion installs. That's why casual thinking produces casual results. But focused, emotionally charged thinking, that's where transformation begins. Want to change your income? Change your internal picture of what's possible. Want to upgrade your relationships? Change the signal you send by changing the self-image you hold. The world mirrors your magnet, not your wishes. Train the magnet, and life becomes a partner. Let's get practical. Tonight, before you sleep, close your eyes and see yourself living as the person you wish to become, not someday. Now, picture the environment, the posture, the decisions, the discipline. Feel it. Reinforce it. This is not daydreaming. It is mental installation. And with enough repetition, the subconscious begins to accept this as reality. Once that shift happens, your magnet changes. You no longer chase results. You attract them by becoming the kind of person who naturally receives them. This is the secret the successful don't advertise. They are not lucky, they are consistent, they are clear, they are aligned, and that alignment begins in thought. Let me challenge you. For the next 7 days, eliminate mental passivity. Whenever you catch yourself drifting into worry, gossip, fear, or complaint, interrupt the pattern. Replace it. Speak out loud if you must. Declare a new thought, a powerful one. You are not at the mercy of your mind. You are its master, and every moment is an opportunity to reinforce that mastery. Repetition is not weakness. It is training. Train the mind and the magnet grows stronger. Neglect the mind and life remains random. But with intention, life becomes a mirror, and it begins to reflect back to you the signal you send. There comes a point in every person's journey when they must decide once and for all what kind of life they will allow themselves to live. Not wish for, not fantasize about, but allow. And that moment, that decision, always begins in the mind. Because the truth is, your life can never rise above the ceiling of your dominant thought patterns. You cannot build a palace with the blueprints of a shack. You cannot live a life of greatness while nurturing thoughts of inferiority. The outer experience always conforms to the inner blueprint. And here's the key: that blueprint isn't permanent. It's programmable. Your mind is not a fixed asset. It is a dynamic, living magnet, capable of learning, reprogramming, upgrading. And just like a magnet aligns with metal, your thoughts align with opportunity, or repel it, depending on what you've conditioned your mind to expect. And expectation is everything. Expectation is belief in motion. It's the silent signal that tells the world what you're ready to receive. The man who expects very little from life usually gets it. The woman who expects greatness and lives as though it's already on the way begins to draw greatness toward her, because expectation is a form of faith. And faith is the most powerful magnetic force on earth. Now let's talk about the invisible framework behind every result in your life: identity. You cannot outperform the image you hold of yourself. You can wish, you can try, but eventually your actions will collapse under the weight of your self-concept. That's why transformation doesn't begin with behavior, it begins with belief. You must become the kind of person who naturally creates the outcomes you desire. And how do you do that? You install a new identity, one thought, one belief, one visualization at a time. You rehearse the new version of yourself mentally until it becomes more real than the old one. That's how the magnet shifts, not by force but by frequency. Not through willpower alone, but through alignment. If you see yourself as weak, unworthy, unlucky, or stuck, your mind will attract evidence to support it. But if you begin to see yourself as capable, disciplined, resourceful, and rising, your actions will follow suit, and so will your results. Identity is destiny, and it is forged in the furnace of focused thought. This is where most people get stuck. They try to change results without first changing identity. They join a gym, start a business, make a goal, but underneath it all, they still believe they're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy of success. And so the magnet malfunctions. There is conflict between what they do and who they believe they are. But when identity and action align, momentum begins. Suddenly the habits stick. The doors open, the people show up. Why? Because you're no longer trying to achieve from the outside. You're simply expressing who you've already become on the inside. That's the secret of the magnetic mind. It doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't hope, it expects. And it expects with conviction. Because the internal image is clear, consistent, and reinforced daily. Let me ask you, what would your life look like if you believed deeply that you were born for purpose? That you were capable of discipline, worthy of wealth, and built for greatness? Not in an arrogant way, but in a quiet, powerful, grounded way. How would you carry yourself? How would you think? What would you no longer tolerate? Who would you become? You see, most people are waiting for external validation before they give themselves permission to think like that. But that's not how magnetic living works. You don't wait for proof, you become the proof. You don't wait for results, you create them by becoming the kind of person who naturally produces those results. That's the shift, that's the power. And once it's made, your entire reality begins to move in rhythm with that new belief system. So let's go deeper. What exactly is a belief? It's not a fact, it's not a law. It's a repeated thought, reinforced over time, emotionally charged and accepted as truth. And that means every belief you hold today was at one point optional. You accepted it, installed it, and began to live by it, often without questioning its origin. But today you have the power to edit, to uninstall what no longer serves you, to replace beliefs of limitation with beliefs of possibility. This isn't fantasy. This is the fundamental process of mental reprogramming, and it is the work of the wise. Take inventory of your beliefs. Write them down. Ask yourself, where did I get this? Do I want to keep it? Because if the belief is shaping your identity, and identity shapes your signal, and your signal shapes your life, you must be selective. You must be ruthless about what you allow to live in your mind. Here's a practical exercise. Choose one belief that has held you back. Just one. Maybe it's I'm not good with money, or I always sabotage relationships, or I can't focus. Whatever it is, write it down. And beside it, write the opposite. Not just as an affirmation, but as a new identity. For example, I am intentional with money. I make wise decisions. I grow in wealth because I value my future. Then speak it daily. See it, embody it, reinforce it. Because the mind believes what it hears most often. And what it believes it begins to magnetize. This is the work most people skip. But it is the only work that changes everything. You do not rise by accident. You rise by design, and design begins with thought. Let me remind you, your mind is not a fixed magnet. It is programmable, moldable, adaptable. And when you take the time to feed it the right beliefs, the right images, and the right emotional reinforcement, you become unstoppable. You become a person of vision, of discipline, of quiet power. The kind of person others want to follow, partner with, support. Not because you're loud or flashy, but because your energy is aligned. Your magnet is clear. Your path is focused. That is the mark of a trained mind, a magnetic mind. And in today's world of noise and distraction, that kind of mind stands out like a lighthouse in the fog. Let's end this chapter with a simple declaration. Say it to yourself now and say it often. I am the architect of my identity. I choose my thoughts, I build my beliefs, and I attract what aligns with who I've decided to become. Let that be your anthem, your cornerstone, because from this moment forward, you are no longer a passive receiver of life's leftovers. You are a conscious creator, a magnetic mind in motion, and the results will begin to show not overnight, but inevitably, because when the magnet is right, the metal comes. That's not magic, that's law. The greatest misunderstanding in the modern world is that success is something we pursue, as though it were a trophy hidden in the outside world. But the truth is, success is not something you chase. It is something you attract by the person you become. It is not something out there that you catch, but something in here that you magnetize. The man who constantly pursues without inner change may touch success briefly, but it will slip through his fingers because he has not yet built the internal structure to hold it. The woman who focuses on becoming, on strengthening her character, refining her thinking, and elevating her standards, will find success arriving almost quietly, naturally, like a guest who shows up early to a house already prepared. You do not chase outcomes. You shape identity, and identity becomes the magnet for outcomes. The external is always the echo of the internal. So when you look at your current results, do not be discouraged, be informed. Your life is not broken. It is simply reflecting back the patterns of your dominant mental habits. Change those and the reflection begins to change with it. Now let us explore a principle that very few ever master. Emotional discipline. You see, while thoughts create the framework of your magnet, emotions are what charge it. They are the electricity, the power source. A thought repeated often may become a belief, but a thought that is felt deeply, repeatedly, becomes identity. And so to shape the mind, you must also master the emotional fuel you attach to it. This is why visualization alone is not enough. You must not only see the vision, you must feel it. With certainty, with gratitude, with anticipation. That emotional tone is what impresses the idea onto the subconscious, and from there the magnet becomes automatic. It begins to operate beneath the surface, and that is when results start to appear with seeming ease. Because now you're no longer forcing the external, you're broadcasting from within. You've installed the right identity, and now the world begins to organize itself around that signal. Let me give you a challenge that very few ever complete, but those who do never go back to the old way of thinking. For the next 30 days, select one dominant outcome you want to create in your life. It could be financial independence, deep confidence, clarity of purpose, or physical transformation. Each morning before the day begins, sit with that outcome. Picture it, speak it, feel it, not as a wish, but as a reality. Not as a hope, but as a decision. Say to yourself, this is who I am. This is already mine. This is already on the way, because I've already become the person who creates it. And then go about your day acting, speaking, and thinking from that place. Watch what begins to change. Not because the universe suddenly rearranged itself for you, but because your inner magnet shifted. You're no longer living by default, you're living by design. This is the law of cause and effect at its highest level. Most people believe that actions alone create results, but actions are always the fruit of thought. Thought is the root, and the stronger, clearer, and more emotionally charged the thought, the more inevitable the outcome. That is why discipline begins in the mind, not in behavior. A man who disciplines only his actions but not his thinking is like a ship patched at the hull, but still headed in the wrong direction. Eventually he will drift. But a man who disciplines his thought, who guards it, reinforces it, elevates it, becomes unstoppable, because his actions are now extensions of a powerful inner compass, and that compass always leads to growth, clarity, and purpose. That is the magnetic life. That is the life of order, alignment, and focused momentum, and it is available to you the moment you decide to claim it. Now let us talk about consistency. The power of your mental magnet is not built by occasional effort. It is built by daily practice, daily reinforcement, daily clarity. A thought rehearsed once is a whisper. A thought rehearsed every day becomes a roar. It becomes the dominant frequency, and that frequency begins to outshine the noise of fear, doubt, and distraction. Success is not a product of motivation. It is a product of repetition. You don't need to feel inspired every day. You need to think in alignment every day. And that thinking repeated becomes belief. Belief repeated becomes identity. Identity lived out becomes reality. That is the true sequence. Most people wait to feel ready. Winners decide to be ready and then train their mind to stay ready. That's magnetic power. That's mental strength. And it's earned through quiet consistency. So how do you build this consistency? You ritualize your thinking. You schedule your clarity. You treat your mindset like a professional athlete treats training. You don't leave it to chance. You don't hope to remember. You install practices, morning visualization, daily affirmations, written goals, emotional rehearsals, evening reflection. These are not spiritual hobbies. They are tools of inner engineering. You are not hoping to become someone new. You are building yourself into someone new. And that self, once solidified in the mind, begins to pull results like iron filings to a magnet. It is no longer forced, it flows, because it is now rooted in truth, in alignment, in emotional certainty and clear expectation. Let me offer you a final insight for this chapter. There is a level of mental clarity so strong, so magnetic, that it begins to repel anything that does not belong in your life. Toxic people, distracting habits, unnecessary noise, they begin to fall away, not because you fought them, but because your signal no longer allows them to stay. You outgrow them energetically. That is the power of upgrading your inner magnet. You do not need to chase, you do not need to fight. You need only to focus, to align, to reinforce the identity of the person you are becoming. Everything else, everything unworthy of that new self, dissolves naturally. Not overnight, but inevitably. That is not optimism. That is physics. That is law. So begin today. Write down your new identity. Speak it, feel it, see it, act on it. Even before the results show up, especially before the results show up, because this is the test. Can you hold the signal when nothing around you confirms it yet? Can you remain in alignment while life still reflects the old frequency? If you can do that, you are no longer reacting to life, you are creating it. That is the moment the magnet shifts forever. And the world, slowly but surely, begins to move toward you. There is a secret rhythm to achievement that most never discover, not because it is hidden, but because it is quiet. While the world celebrates speed, noise, and visibility, true greatness moves in silence. The most magnetic minds are not those that shout their intentions, but those that align inwardly, precisely, and consistently with a vision no one else can see yet. The farmer does not dig up the seed every day to see if it's growing. He waters, he watches, he waits. So too must you understand the law of gestation. Every thought you plant, every belief you install, every identity you reinforce, these take root over time. The soil of the subconscious requires repetition, not urgency, stillness, not panic, belief, not proof. And the man who understands this becomes unshakable, because while others demand quick results, he knows that the invisible magnet is already doing its work. The results are on the way. The blueprint is installed. Reality is just catching up. Now let's talk about resistance, because whenever you begin to reshape your inner world, whenever you upgrade your magnet, you will feel friction. Old beliefs will try to reassert themselves. Familiar patterns will whisper, "This isn't you." People around you may become uncomfortable, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're disrupting a system that expected you to stay the same. This resistance is not a sign to stop. It is a signal that the shift is working. Just like a rocket encounters the most drag just before it breaks through the atmosphere, you will face the most internal and external resistance just before your new identity becomes the dominant one. Expect it, prepare for it, and most importantly, do not interpret it as failure. Interpret it as confirmation. The old you is being replaced. The magnet is changing polarity, and that process is never comfortable, but it is always worth it. This brings us to the subject of environment. Your internal magnet does not operate in isolation. It both influences and is influenced by the environment you choose. The people you associate with, the content you consume, the routines you maintain. These either strengthen or weaken your signal. If you're trying to think like a champion while surrounding yourself with voices of fear, laziness, gossip, and distraction, you are creating magnetic interference, and interference weakens attraction. That's why you must be intentional about your inputs. Curate your world. Filter your conversations. Protect your mornings. Audit your associations. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. You are not judging others. You are simply choosing to preserve your power, because your magnet is precious, and every careless input is a small reprogramming. Guard it well. Let me offer you a powerful metaphor. Picture your mind as a tuning fork. When it is clear, calibrated, and focused, it rings out a frequency that harmonizes with the results you desire. But when it is bumped too many times by chaos, negativity, and distraction, it loses its tone. The frequency gets cloudy. The results become inconsistent. This is why solitude matters. Reflection matters. Quiet matters. Not as an escape from life, but as a strategic return to your signal. Great minds schedule silence. They carve out space to recalibrate. Not because they are avoiding responsibility, but because they are magnetizing vision. And from that vision, every meaningful action is born. You might be wondering, if this is all true, why don't more people teach it? The answer is simple, because most people don't know how to measure the unseen. They value what is immediate, external, and visible. They measure success by numbers, applause, and status. But the magnetic mind plays a different game. It measures by alignment, by clarity, by internal congruence. And because of this, it often appears quiet, until the results arrive, and then suddenly the world notices. That's the pattern of all true builders. They lay the foundation in silence, in obscurity, in doubt. But once the structure rises, everyone sees the power. Be that builder. Respect the unseen. Value the roots, even before the fruit appears. Let us now touch on gratitude, not as sentiment, but as magnetic fuel. Gratitude is one of the highest emotional frequencies you can cultivate. When paired with a clear vision, it becomes a force that pulls reality toward you faster than logic can explain. Why? Because gratitude says, it is already mine. It aligns you with the feeling of already having, already being, already receiving. And the subconscious cannot distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is real. That means when you practice gratitude in advance, when you feel the emotion of your desired future as if it is happening now, you are reinforcing the signal. You are broadcasting completion, and completion attracts confirmation. This is not fantasy. This is emotional magnetism. Use it daily. Here is your exercise for the next week. Each morning, write down 3 things: who you are becoming, what you are grateful for, and what you will attract today. Make it simple. Make it real. I am becoming a focused, disciplined creator. I am grateful for my health, my clarity, my opportunity. I attract aligned connections and powerful ideas. That process takes less than 5 minutes, but over time it rewires your magnet. It focuses your energy, and it gives your subconscious clear instructions about what to notice, what to expect, and what to attract. Most people wander into their day reactive and confused, but not you. You will broadcast with clarity, and that clarity will compound. Let's end this chapter with one clear declaration. I am the magnet. I am not the noise. I am not the past. I am the cause. Say it often. Feel it deeply. Let it override the static of old programming. Because you are not here to survive. You are here to create. And creation begins within, in the soil of thought, in the fire of emotion, in the repetition of identity. That is your leverage. That is your power. And when the world sees your results, let them wonder. Let them guess. Because by then, you will already know the secret. You didn't chase anything. You attracted it, because you became it first. There is a moment in every life when the noise fades, the world quiets, and a man or woman is left alone with their thoughts. No audience. No performance. Just the raw, unfiltered essence of who they've become. That moment, whether it lasts a few seconds or a few hours, reveals everything. It shows you the quality of your inner life. It shows you whether your thoughts serve you or sabotage you. And in that stillness, you come face to face with the single greatest truth of human existence. You are the creator of your reality. You are not simply a product of circumstance. You are not at the mercy of fate, family, or fortune. You are the architect of your destiny, and your blueprint is written in thought. Your magnet is shaped by the stories you tell yourself when no one is watching. And if those stories are disempowering, repetitive, or inherited from a past that no longer serves you, then your future will reflect that by default. But if you can shift those stories, if you can deliberately rewrite the narrative, you can redirect the magnet. You can break cycles. You can build new ones. You can start now. Let us talk about story, because every human being lives according to one. And your story, whether conscious or unconscious, dictates your expectations, decisions, habits, and outcomes. If your story says, "I'm always behind," you will act accordingly. If it says, "Nothing ever works for me," you will unknowingly sabotage opportunity. But if your story becomes, "I am growing, evolving, rising into who I'm meant to be," you create new emotional reference points. And those points shift the magnet. This is why transformation is not a matter of trying harder, it's a matter of believing better. The story is the signal. The signal becomes the magnet. The magnet attracts the match. So I ask you, what story are you currently living inside? And is it one that was built by your vision or built by your wounds? Many of the stories we live are hand-me-downs, given to us by family, culture, past experiences. Stories like, "Money is hard," "I'm not disciplined," "People like me don't succeed." These stories are not facts. They are mental scripts. And every script can be rewritten. But rewriting requires awareness. It requires stopping long enough to ask, who gave me this story, and do I still want to live by it? If the answer is no, you must begin the deliberate process of replacing it. This isn't about lying to yourself. It's about upgrading your internal language to match the life you actually want. You wouldn't program a GPS with the wrong destination and expect to arrive at the right place. So don't let your internal dialogue steer you away from where you're meant to go. Let's now talk about imagination, not as fantasy, but as function. The most powerful tool you possess is your ability to imagine a new future. The mind cannot distinguish between vividly imagined reality and physical experience. That means what you mentally rehearse becomes what you emotionally experience, and what you emotionally experience becomes what your magnet reinforces. This is why vision boards, visualizations, and future journaling work. Not because they are mystical, but because they train your internal signal. They tell your subconscious, this is where we're going. And once the subconscious accepts that direction, it begins to filter opportunities, people, and ideas to align with that trajectory. It's not magic, it's mechanics. The mind always works to prove itself right, so give it a better belief to confirm. You must also understand this. The magnet you carry today is not fixed. It is a snapshot of your most dominant thoughts over the past weeks, months, or years. That means no matter how far off course you feel, you can begin the return by shifting your signal. Right now, not tomorrow, not when things settle down. Now, the most magnetic people are not the ones with perfect pasts. They are the ones who interrupt their patterns and say, enough. From this moment forward, I choose a new signal. I choose a new story. I choose a new standard. That declaration is the spark. What follows is the discipline to reinforce it until it becomes automatic. Until the new magnet overpowers the old one. Until the new self becomes the only self. Let's go deeper into reinforcement. You cannot simply say a new affirmation once and expect your life to change. You must rehearse it daily. Repetition is not redundant. It is rewiring. Each time you speak the new story, feel the new identity, act on the new belief, you are digging a deeper groove into your subconscious. And eventually that groove becomes the path of least resistance. The old story becomes irrelevant, not because you denied it, but because you replaced it. And the best way to reinforce is with action. Thought sets the direction. Emotion charges it. But action confirms it. Every time you take action from the new identity, you're telling your subconscious, this is real. And once it believes that, the magnet becomes automatic. You begin to attract what matches that belief, even without trying. Here is your challenge for this chapter. Choose one story you're ready to let go of. Write it down. Then beneath it, write the new story, the true story. One that aligns with your vision, not your limitation. Speak it aloud, every morning, every night. Let it become the language of your inner world. And then take one small action each day that proves it. If your new story is, I am disciplined, then wake up when you say you will. If your story is, I am powerful, then speak like it, walk like it, lead like it. You don't need to be perfect, you need to be consistent. Over time, your actions will catch up to your identity, and your results will catch up to your actions. Let's close with a reminder that will serve you for the rest of your life. The most magnetic people are not loud, they are clear. They do not beg life for outcomes, they command them through alignment. They do not chase, they calibrate. They become the signal, and then the signal brings them the results. That is your work now. Not to do more, but to think cleaner, feel deeper, and act truer. That's where your power lives, in thought, in emotion, in decision. And every day you reinforce that with intention. You move closer to the life that was always waiting for you on the other side of belief. There comes a point in every transformation where the shift is no longer mental, it is cellular. The new identity isn't something you think about, it's something you live from. The new belief isn't something you rehearse, it's something you embody. You don't have to try to remember who you are becoming because it is now the only version of you that makes sense. This is the destination of all magnetic work, to internalize the truth so deeply that it becomes your resting state. No more effortful pretending, no more sporadic effort, just natural alignment, seamless flow. That's when people start asking, what changed? And you won't always have words for it, because it wasn't one thing. It was 1,000 small shifts in thought, emotion, discipline, and story, each one strengthening your internal magnet until life had no choice but to match the signal. This is the quiet revolution. And every person you admire, every visionary, every leader, every creator went through it alone, silently, purposefully. So if you are in that in-between space right now, unsure if the change is working, unsure if the results will come, stay the course. You are not lost. You are recalibrating, and the universe is watching. Let's talk about the idea of inevitability. The most magnetic minds carry themselves with a quiet certainty, not because they've figured everything out, but because they've already decided who they are. And when that decision is absolute, life begins to bend around it. Not instantly, but steadily. Because nothing is more powerful than a person who has burned the bridge to their old self and committed entirely to the new. That commitment changes posture, it changes language, it changes choices, and over time it sends a message to the world. I no longer participate in anything that doesn't align with who I've chosen to become. That kind of clarity is rare, and that's why it's magnetic. Most people hesitate. They wait for permission. They straddle two selves, the old and the new. But you, if you are willing, can be different. You can be decisive. And that decision, reinforced daily, becomes the signal that draws in opportunity, alignment, and the people who can walk with you, not ahead, not behind, but beside you. This is where vision plays its final role. Because by now you've planted the seed. You've rehearsed the identity. You've faced the resistance. But what will sustain you long-term is not motivation, it's vision. A clear, compelling picture of the life you are building, the man or woman you are becoming, the impact you are here to make. And that vision must be kept in front of you, not as fantasy, but as compass. Every morning return to it. Every night reflect on it. Let it become the lighthouse that guides your behavior, your energy, your speech. Because when the vision is strong, decisions become simple. Discipline becomes automatic. Sacrifice becomes obvious. You don't need to be pushed when the pull is strong enough. And that pull comes from seeing your future self, not as possibility, but as reality. You are walking toward with every breath. So let me ask you again, who are you becoming? Not what do you want, not what do you hope, but who are you already stepping into? Can you describe that version of you in detail? How do they walk, speak, create, contribute, rest, lead? The more detail, the more power. Because the subconscious responds to specifics. If you give it a blurry signal, you'll get blurry results. But if you feed it clarity, if you imprint the image of your highest self over and over again, it will adjust everything within you to match that target. That's how goals become inevitable. Not because you forced them, but because you installed the identity of the person for whom those goals are natural. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. And your most important system is the identity you carry. Now take a moment to reflect on the journey so far. You began by understanding that the mind is a magnet, that it draws to it what it consistently broadcasts. You learned that thoughts, when repeated and emotionally charged, become beliefs. Beliefs shape identity. Identity drives action. Action creates results. You accepted the truth that your life is not happening to you, it's responding to you, and that you have the power right now to reshape that response by recalibrating your signal. That's not just inspiration. That's architecture. You are not a wanderer. You are a builder. And the most important structure you will ever build is the one behind your eyes. So what now? What happens after the breakthrough? You sustain it, you protect it, you refine it, because even a powerful magnet loses strength when left in chaos. You must maintain the clarity, revisit the vision, reinforce the identity, elevate the standard. This is not a sprint, it is a lifestyle. You are no longer chasing results, you are growing roots. And the deeper the root, the taller the rise, the stronger the foundation, the wider the impact. So stay grounded, stay consistent, stay clear, and trust that every effort, every repetition, every internal shift is shaping the signal that will determine what life hands you next. Let's finish with one simple truth. You are already the person you're trying to become. You just haven't lived enough days in alignment with that identity to see the full harvest. But the seed is there, the blueprint is complete, the magnet is humming. And the moment you decide to live from that place, not occasionally but daily, everything changes. Not all at once, but undeniably, quietly, powerfully, like a river carving stone, like a dawn breaking darkness. This is not motivation. This is transformation. And it begins again and again with the same question. What signal am I sending today? Answer that. Align with it, and let the magnet do the rest.